Welcome to another deep dive. You guys gave us some really fascinating material this time.
Yeah.
A collection of unsolved crimes in India
Right.
that have just left investigators and the public baffled for years, and I mean years.
Absolutely, yeah.
So today we're going to explore not just what happened in each case,
Right.
but what those events reveal about India, about its justice system, and maybe even human nature itself.
Oh, yeah. Big questions.
Joining us to help make sense of these mysteries is an investigative journalist who has covered several of these cases firsthand.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Ready to get started?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's begin with a case that sent chills through the streets of Kolkata back in the late 1980s. The Stoneman murders.
Ooh, yeah.
Okay, so imagine Kolkata in the late 1980s.
Okay.
Now picture this. Echoing footsteps in a dark alleyway. A scream piercing the night, and then silence. It's a chilling scene. And it became a terrifying reality for Kolkata's homeless population during the Stoneman murders. At least 13 individuals, all homeless, were found bludgeoned to death in their sleep.
Wow.
The weapon, a heavy stone. The motive, completely unknown.
Oh, wow.
No suspect was ever caught, and to this day there's debate about whether it was the work of one person or multiple killers.
Wow.
The lack of answers just amplified the fear. What makes this case so disturbing, you might be wondering, is that it wasn't just about the brutality of the murders.
Right.
It exposed a deeply unsettling truth. How society's most vulnerable often become invisible, easy targets in the shadows. You were reporting in Kolkata at the time. Can you describe what the atmosphere was like?
Oh, it was palpable. The city was truly on edge. You could feel the fear in the air. People were afraid to go out alone at night, and there was this sense of vulnerability that anyone could be next. The police presence increased dramatically, but the killer was never caught. And that unsolved mystery just left a scar on the city's psyche, a sense of unease that lingers even today.
You mentioned the increased police presence, but did the investigation uncover any leads, any potential suspects?
There were theories, rumors swirling in the city, but nothing concrete ever emerged. No fingerprints, no witnesses, no connection between the victims other than their vulnerability. The lack of any real progress just added to the mystery and the fear. Some even speculated that the killer might have been a deranged individual, someone with a vendetta against the homeless.
So lack of answers, the randomness of the attacks, it all contributed to this feeling of pervasive fear. What was it like for the city's homeless population, knowing that someone was targeting them and that the killer could still be out there?
Imagine trying to sleep, knowing that you could be the next victim. There's no real protection, no safe haven when you're living on the streets. This wasn't just a crime. It was a violation of the most basic human right, the right to safety and security.
It makes you think about how we as a society often fail to see the vulnerable among us, and in cases like this, that invisibility can have devastating consequences. We've been talking about the fear, the lack of answers, but was there any impact on Kolkata beyond that immediate sense of panic? Did this case lead to any kind of social change or spark any discussions about how to better protect the homeless?
There was a definite shift in public perception. People started paying more attention to the plight of the homeless, their vulnerability. Charities and social organizations saw an increase in donations and volunteers wanting to help, but real lasting change.
Yeah,
That's debatable.
right.
Sadly, the spotlight on social issues often fades with time, even after a tragedy like this.
It's a reminder that awareness is important, but it's only the first step towards meaningful change. The Stoneman case, with its lingering questions and unresolved anxieties, serves as a haunting reminder of the vulnerability that exists within our society, especially for those who are often overlooked and marginalized. The Stoneman murders really make you think about those who live on the margins of society, you know?
Yeah.
And the dangers they face. The feeling of vulnerability, the lack of answers, those themes, they resonate even more strongly in our next case. It's 2018. We're in Delhi now. And a family is found dead in their home under, well, incredibly strange circumstances.
Okay.
This is the case of the Burari deaths. So imagine a quiet residential neighborhood in Delhi.
All right.
It's a seemingly ordinary day until a chilling discovery just rocks the community. 11 members of the Chindawat family are found dead inside their home. 10 of them are hanging from the ceiling, blindfolded, hands tied, mouths taped shut. The grandmother is found dead in another room. Diaries are discovered, filled with details about rituals the family believed would bring them prosperity. The details are unsettling, to say the least.
Wow.
This case made international headlines. What was it like reporting on something so tragic yet so mysterious?
I mean, the sheer scale of the tragedy was overwhelming.
Yeah.
11 lives lost, an entire family wiped out. The media descended on Barari almost immediately, and there was this intense pressure to find answers, to make sense of something that just seemed utterly senseless.
The diaries add such a strange dimension to the case.
Right.
They suggest a shared delusion, a belief that these rituals would lead to some kind of spiritual or material gain. What did the investigators make of these diaries? Did they provide any insights into the family's mindset?
Well, the diaries were both fascinating and heartbreaking.
Yeah.
They painted a picture of a family deeply immersed in a world of ritual and belief. There were detailed instructions for the hangings, described as a path to salvation, a way to achieve a higher state of being.
So, were the investigators leaning towards mass suicide driven by a shared delusion?
Yes, that was the initial theory. The diaries, the lack of forced entry, the arrangement of the bodies, it all seemed to point to a planned, ritualistic suicide. However, there were also some unanswered questions that fueled speculation about other possibilities. For example, the grandmother's body was found in a separate room. Why wasn't she part of the hanging ritual?
Right.
Did she orchestrate the whole thing? Was there some external influence at play?
You mentioned speculation. Did any alternative theories gain traction?
Some people believe that the family might have been victims of a cult, like manipulated into carrying out this horrific act. Others pointed to occult practices, suggesting the family might have been influenced by tantric rituals or black magic.
Right.
But there was never any concrete evidence to support these claims.
It's interesting how the absence of clear answers can lead to such a wide range of theories and interpretations. In a way, it becomes a reflection of our own anxieties, our fear of the unknown. If we can't understand the why, we try to fill that void with whatever explanation, however far-fetched, makes us feel a little less uneasy. Did the investigators ever fully rule out the possibility of an outside force, someone coercing or manipulating the family? What was the final conclusion of the investigation?
Well, the police ultimately concluded that it was a case of shared delusion leading to mass suicide. They attributed it to a combination of factors: the family's strong belief in superstition, the influence of the diaries, and the charismatic personality of one of the sons, who seemed to be the driving force behind the rituals.
But you said there were unanswered questions. Was everyone convinced by the police's conclusion? Did any experts or family members challenge the official findings?
There were certainly dissenting voices. Some psychologists argued that it was highly unlikely for an entire family to share such a strong delusion without any external influence. They pointed to cases of mass hysteria where groups can be manipulated into believing and acting on irrational ideas. There were also questions about the forensic evidence. Some experts claimed that the ligature marks on the bodies were inconsistent with self-hanging, suggesting a possibility of foul play.
So even with the official conclusion, there's still an element of doubt, a lingering possibility that we might never know the full story, and that's what makes this case so unsettling. It challenges our understanding of human behavior, our assumptions about family, and the power of belief. The Stoneman murders and the Barari deaths, both shrouded in mystery and marked by unanswered questions. These cases force us to confront the limits of our understanding and the unsettling truth that some things may forever remain beyond our grasp. The Barari deaths really are a stark reminder of how belief and the things we just can't explain can shape our understanding of the world. Now, let's turn to a case that gripped India's attention for years, fueled by just relentless media coverage and a series of twists and turns that they seemed ripped from a crime novel. This is the Arushi Talwar case, a story of a seemingly perfect family shattered by tragedy and shrouded in mystery. So, it's 2008. We're in Noida, a suburb of Delhi. A seemingly ordinary morning turns into a nightmare when 14-year-old Arushi Talwar is found murdered in her own bedroom.
Tragic.
Initially, suspicion falls on the family's domestic help, Hemraj, who has just disappeared. But then his body is discovered on the terrace of the Talwar residence,
Oh, wow.
adding another layer of complexity to an already horrifying crime.
Yeah.
What followed was just a media frenzy, with cameras and reporters camped outside the Talwar home, just dissecting every detail, every rumor, every possible motive. You've written extensively about this case.
Yeah.
What was it like to be in the middle of such a high-profile investigation with the media scrutiny at a fever pitch?
I mean, it was unlike anything I'd experienced before. The media attention was relentless, and it had a significant impact on the investigation.
Right.
Reporters were chasing every lead, interviewing neighbors, speculating about family secrets. It created this atmosphere of suspicion and distrust, where everyone was looking for someone to blame.
The focus quickly shifted to Arushi's parents, Rajesh and Nupur Talwar. Can you talk about how they became the prime suspects in their own daughter's murder?
Well, there were a few factors that contributed to that shift.
Yeah.
The police initially mishandled the crime scene, allowing crucial evidence to be contaminated. They also focused heavily on the parents' behavior, interpreting their grief and shock as signs of guilt.
And the media played a role in shaping public opinion too, right?
Absolutely. The media coverage was often sensationalized, focusing on the parents' alleged infidelity, their supposed lack of emotion, and painting a picture of a dysfunctional family harboring dark secrets. It was a classic case of trial by media, where public opinion was swayed by speculation and innuendo rather than concrete evidence.
You mentioned mishandled evidence. Can you give us some specific examples of how the investigation went wrong?
There were several critical errors.
Yeah.
For instance, the crime scene wasn't properly secured, allowing neighbors and media personnel to enter before forensic experts arrived.
Wow.
Key pieces of evidence, like the murder weapon, were never found. The police also failed to collect fingerprints from several surfaces, compromising the integrity of the investigation from the very beginning.
So the initial investigation was flawed, to say the least?
Yeah.
And then the Talwars were convicted.
Yes, in 2013, they were found guilty of Arushi's murder and sentenced to life imprisonment. However, their convictions were overturned by the Allahabad High Court in 2017, citing lack of sufficient evidence and inconsistencies in the investigation.
So even after all that, after years of investigation, trials, and media scrutiny, the case remains unsolved.
Exactly. The Arushi Talwar case is a stark reminder of the complexities of criminal investigations, the power of media narratives, and the fragility of justice. It also highlights the importance of proper forensic procedures and unbiased investigations, especially in high-profile cases where emotions run high.
What do you think is the biggest takeaway from this case? What lessons can we learn from the mistakes that were made?
I think the Arushi Talwar case underscores the need for a more robust and impartial justice system in India.
Right.
We need better training for police officers, stricter protocols for evidence collection and preservation, and a media that prioritizes responsible reporting over sensationalism.
The Stoneman murders, the Burari deaths, the Arushi Talwar case, 3 very different cases, yet all united by unanswered questions, the weight of grief, and the persistent search for truth and justice. Thank you for guiding us through these complex and often disturbing cases. Your insights have been invaluable in helping us try to understand these events.
It's been my pleasure. These cases are a reminder that even in the age of technology and forensic advancements, some mysteries may never be fully solved.
Yeah.
But the search for answers, the pursuit of justice, that should never end.
And to our listeners, as you reflect on these cases, consider the power of belief, the fragility of evidence, and the importance of demanding a justice system that is fair, impartial, and accountable. That's all for this deep dive. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.